Good evening, everyone. We're doing some intro to photobiomodulation or red light therapy, so get ready. So, photobiomodulation, what is it? So, previously known as low-level light therapy or low-level laser therapy, LLLT. There's also about 20-30 different synonyms. You go back looking in PubMed, but most people are going to call it red light therapy. But more technically correct would be something such as photobiomodulation or PBM is what all the scientists call it now. So photo meaning light, bio meaning biology, modulation change. So how do you change your biology with light? So photobiomodulation is the utilization mostly of red and infrared wavelengths of light to cause some type of reaction in the body. So tonight we're going to make it real simple. So, we're talking about, there's a battery. So, I'm going to show you this little stuffed animal dude. He's like a little mitochondria. It says powerhouse of the cell. Mitochondria do more things than just that, but tonight we'll focus more on kind of the energy production side of mitochondria. So, mitochondria are the organelles in your cells that are responsible for making energy. So, they take the foodstuffs in. You breathe in oxygen, they combust those things through the electron transport chain, and out the other side comes ATP, which is an energy currency. Oxygen is going to react with the electrons, create water. The water is very important. You'll make infrared heat, and then carbon dioxide. You breathe out the carbon dioxide. So the site of photobiomodulation, for the most part, that we'll be talking about tonight, is in the cytochrome 4, cytochrome C oxidase. So, talking more about the battery side of things. So, photobiomodulation can be utilized with different types of devices. Tonight I'll do a demo of a couple of my toys. So, first off, one of them I have it just on my wrist. I have the Weber Spectra watch on my wrist tonight. This has a couple different wavelengths of light, and it's smashed up against the radial artery, so it can kind of put the wavelengths directly into the bloodstream. So this one does actually have more than just red and infrared. It does have blue and yellow, but those aren't as important tonight. So we're just going to focus on the red and the infrared wavelengths of light. So that's the thing with photobiomodulation, is you need to know what wavelengths of light you're using. So basically what colors. Most of the red wavelengths are going to be in the 600 nanometer range. A lot of them in that 660 nanometer. And then the infrared, which you can't see with your eyes, but your body can sense, is usually going to be in the 810 nanometers and above range. So first, if you have a photobiomodulation device, you need to know what wavelengths of light that it's putting out. Second thing you need to know about is the irradiance, or the power density. Essentially, how many photons are coming out of your device per square centimeter. So this is kind of the equivalent of, like, do you have a candle light or do you have a blowtorch? More photons, quicker delivery of that energy source. Doesn't mean necessarily better, but it's like cooking a turkey. You got to have the right amount of time. You can't, you can drop it in boiling oil, but that doesn't usually go too well, and it doesn't really actually taste that well. Or if you try to cook a turkey with a flashlight, it's never going to cook. So you need a proper irradiance and the proper time to have the proper dosage, essentially. So it's that irradiance, and then the time gives you the dose. So the dose is measured in joules. So, I often get the question like, well, I have a blank device, how long do I use it for? It's always going to be dependent on what metrics the device has. So, first, what wavelengths, what colors of light is it using? Is it red, is it infrared, is it both? What is the irradiance, or the power density? That's going to be a measurement called milliwatts per centimeter squared. Higher radiance is not necessarily better. And honestly, most of the companies, they over measure their irradiances. They're using the wrong type of meters. They're usually using a solar meter. This is data that I've learned from Andrew at Gimba Red. His blog, gimbared.com, has excellent tutorials about how to research a panel to know exactly what the specifications are. But you want to use a proper laser meter to measure the irradiance. So you want your manufacturer to put on the website what the irradiances are, because most people aren't walking around with a laser power meter. Myself included, I don't have one yet, is the key. But ideally, they would also send out their devices to a third-party testing facility and would measure the exact irradiances for the power density. And it'd be on their website saying that, 3 inches away from the device, it's 20 milliwatts per centimeter squared at, 12 inches away from the device, it's 4 milliwatts per centimeter squared, or whatever the metrics are going to be. Most of the ones you're going to see online are going to say they're 100 milliwatts per centimeter squared. That's honestly probably way too high, and it actually probably is not accurate. You don't need that high of a radiance to get the benefit. So, again, being a battery. So, the red spectrum, for the most part, it's going to work on the mitochondria. I'm a cardiologist by training. Your heart has, approximately 5,000 mitochondria per cell. I've heard estimates that, a third of the weight of your heart is mitochondria. So, if your mitochondria aren't doing well by making energy, you're going to have heart problems. You're going to have heart failure, either diastolic heart failure, where the heart doesn't relax well, or systolic heart failure, where the heart doesn't pump well. Heart disease is an energetic issue for many people. So, the electron transport chain has like 5 stepping stones to think of. So, on the 4th one, the electrons are hopping through this little hot potato, and if nitric oxide is sitting there, the electron flow stops. There's times where you don't want to be making excessive energy because anytime you're breathing oxygen, and processing electrons, there's always going to be a reactive oxygen species. So potentially it could be rusting too fast from the inside out. So sometimes the body will put nitric oxide on that porous cytochrome and kind of slow things down, pump the brakes essentially. Well, if you need to make more energy, you got to get nitric oxide out of there. The red spectrum of light penetrates into the mitochondria, kicks nitric oxide off, and then the electrons can flow through. When the electrons flow through, water is then made at the 4th cytochrome. Then the electrons and the protons coming through the ATPase, the 5th cytochrome, spins around, more ATP currency comes out. There's also water that is generated, deuterium depleted water. If you've read the work of Gerald Pollack, has an excellent kind of starter book on the 4th phase of water. Highly encourage you to read this book if you have not yet. The 4th phase of water by Dr. Pollack. Excellent intro book to structured water, exclusions of water, easy water. That water also acts as a battery. So when infrared light hits this water, it separates into negative and positive charge. The negative charge stays on the biological surfaces and pushes everything else out. So the goal is to have a high net negative charge in your mitochondria, a better charged battery. So the infrared wavelengths of light make that water battery larger. So that is one of the other benefits of using both wavelengths of light for photobiomodulation. Often get asked the question, what's the difference between photobiomodulation or red light therapy and sauna? Just different wavelengths. Saunas tend to use more mid and far infrared. That's more acting on the water networks. It doesn't directly work on the mitochondria. It's more important for also detoxification and activating heat shock proteins. Both beneficial, and for people who are old enough on this call to remember AM radio and FM radio, it's just different frequencies. The body resonates to different frequencies. So both beneficial, but work a little bit differently. So that's what I want to kind of share tonight was, what is photobiomodulation for any of my new followers, or a refresher for the ones who've been following me for a while. In my office in St. Louis at Apollo Cardiology, I'm always teaching patients how to utilize photobiomodulation to optimize their health. I have a couple different devices in my office that I show people how to use. I have the very large EMR Tech Fire Hawk. It's 8 foot tall, 4 foot wide, well over 300 pounds, and it's a beast. It was a lot of fun to jimmy it into the service elevator to get up into our 12th floor suite. But now it's set up. It's amazing. So, if you want to charge up all your mitochondria in just a few minutes, this thing can help you do that. A lot of professional teams use these, full body panels or beds essentially to recover faster from their exercise or pre-treat before the exercise, because that helps with endurance, and it also helps with being able to do more reps before failure. So, photobiomodulation is very useful for musculoskeletal recovery. That's probably has the most data behind it, is for musculoskeletal treatments. So tonight, the demo is using the Weber laser watch to do photobiomodulation right over the radial artery and put the photons of light directly into the bloodstream, and then those wavelengths of light are then transmitted through the system. I have another device I've shown before. It's called the CareWear patch. It's a little flexible LED patch, has red and blue LEDs on the patch. It's a little sticker. These stickers last for about 30 to 40 sessions. So essentially if you have a wound or injury, you stick this on the thing that hurts, and there's a little battery pack that you charge up, and then runs a little 30-minute program and automatically goes off. But you can also kind of hack it and use this, just like my watch here, and put it over the wrist and put the wavelengths of light into the wrist. This has been demonstrated to be able to release nitric oxide with that pulsing blue spectrum of light. The blue, because of its very short wavelength, generally isn't going to penetrate very well, so you got to be smack dab right on the skin to be able to get a couple of photons through the system. Blue is more important for like killing bacteria and such. For acne, there's some oral care benefits of blue light therapy as well, but for the most part, it's red and infrared for most people. So those are kind of the wrist ones. You can probably see I'm lit up like a Christmas tree right now with a full-length body panel that I use in my kind of home gym. I won't necessarily show you. It just looks like, with about 1 foot by 3 foot tall, so it's a big panel. But I've previously done a couple talks on brain photobiomodulation. Go ahead. I'll jack up my hair tonight. It's not hooked up right now, but this is the Weber Medical LED helmet. Has a little power cord that you plug into there, and then a LED screen that you run the programs through. But this has well over 300 near-infrared diodes in it. 810 nanometers, can penetrate the frontal lobes, but also different parts of the brain. And so it looks like a crazy Doc Brown bicycle helmet. And so brain photobiomodulation can help with lowering inflammation in the brain, brings blood flow to the territory. It's got some interesting research for Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, traumatic brain injury, autism. So a lot more data coming out on brain photobiomodulation coming soon. But this is one of the ones where, for skin stuff, I'm pretty liberal with people, kind of biohacking and experimenting on themselves. But you really need to know what you're doing if you're going to do brain photobiomodulation. I've definitely heard case reports of people causing some biphasic responses where they've done a little bit too much and caused an inhibitory response in their motor tract and had some motor weakness for a while. Fortunately, resolved within about 24 hours. But if you do not know what you're doing with these brain devices, you definitely can potentially injure yourself. So, buyer beware and work with somebody who knows what they're doing. There is a company called DGYAO. Has an interesting kind of helmet type thing. It's only red wavelengths. It kind of looks like a boxer helmet when you get this thing on. But this potentially is helpful for hair growth. It can penetrate the frontal lobes as well. But what's interesting about this one is that it's soft and flexible, and it actually zips up. So it becomes like a flexible panel. So it's really good for travel. It just rolls up in your carry-on bag, and you can have kind of like spot welding issues with this panel if you travel with it. So let's see if there's any questions coming up tonight, but that's the main things I want to kind of hit upon. For those that haven't seen it before, I do have a website called redlightdoc.com, all one word. Has some of my prior photobiomodulation videos up there. Have a couple of links to some of the companies I typically personally use, or I know the owners and know that they have reputable devices. It is one of those buyer beware type of things. That's still the wild, wild west in the photobiomodulation world. There's some snake oil salesmen out there, and you want to have a company that has a quality product, and ideally list all their specifications out so that you can get the exact dose that you're interested in using for whatever condition you want to treat. But redlightdoc.com has those videos, has links to some of the companies I recommend, has dosage calculators, so you can, if you have the specifications of your device, you can plug it into the calculators, and it'll tell you, how long to use the devices for. So it's a decent resource, but don't judge me on my web programming skills. I'm a much better cardiologist than I am a web developer. So somebody's asking about any experience with light wavelengths infused via IV therapy, treated fluids or medications with light spectrums, BS and murky theory or potential. Okay, so this person's speaking of something known as IV blood irradiation or IVBI. Yes, I've done it twice on myself. Typically, it's utilized more for people with cancers or autoimmune conditions or serious infections. I just did it because I'm a biohacker and wanted to see what it'd be like. But it's made by the same company that makes the helmet and my watch, the Weber. They have a device called the Weber Endolaser. It has the generator for the lasers, and then it has the fiber optic cables that plug into it. So IV blood irradiation is done via an IV, usually placed in the antecubital region. So typically, patients get Myers cocktail or whatever else they're going to get, IV, and then there's a thin fiber optic filament that's placed into the IV and into the vein, and then at the Weber Endolaser, you dial in which wavelengths of light you can utilize. There is red, there's infrared, there's UV, there's a blue, there's a yellow and a green, and different wavelengths do different things. But because you don't have to have the light penetrate the skin to get access to the blood vessels, you can actually get some of these wavelengths of light to have a biophysical response. So you can see my face is all lit up red right now. So when red light hits your skin, 63% of it bounces off your skin. Only 37% has a chance to interact with the mitochondria. Some of it, is going to go in and bounce around and hit something else. Some of it may ultimately scatter and go all the way through. But when you're in the vein, you decrease that distance. So IV blood irradiation, much more useful for trying to kill certain infections and such. But if you think of it like putting red and infrared into the liquid blood, you're going to improve that exclusion zone of the water. So you make a better battery in the blood plasma that's being transmitted through the system. The interesting thing about IV blood irradiation, it's actually on the World Anti-Doping Association's website as a prohibited activity for professional athletes and Olympians. I believe it was the Romanian handball team got busted a few years back with it, and they say no go for that. Now, light hitting your skin, they're not going to ever be able to prove that you did that. These are the same wavelengths that go out in the sun. So I should say that it's summertime here, at least in the northern hemisphere. You have access to sunrise to sunset. That light wavelength always has the right balance of light throughout the day for you. So you don't necessarily need to use these panels if you have good sun exposure and you get your skin out in the game. Now, I always will call these panels supplements. They're more useful in the wintertime when you don't have as large of a sun window in your area. But I often get that question, like, can I just use sunlight? Yeah, you can use sunlight. Just go outside, skin in the game. But back to your IV blood irradiation, definitely has some interesting benefits. There are studies in Russia where they've treated patients with active heart attacks with this. I don't think that's ever coming to the States. Here it's much more of a pills and procedure type of philosophy. They're not going to bust out these laser catheters anytime soon, probably. But there is something also known as photodynamic therapy, where they give you a certain compound prior to the IV blood irradiation, and it may help a little bit more with killing certain viruses. There is some data for it also helping certain malignancies be treated. But since I'm not an oncologist, I don't keep up to date on the exact protocols for that. But there is somebody in St. Louis, if somebody's interested, that I'm friends with. And so send me a message. I can always connect you with her if you're interested in that type of treatment. All right. So somebody's asking, will their new small box fire or EMR tech help hair grow back after chemo's done and lung tumors that are nearly gone, last chemo next week? So this is one of those caveats where I can't give you personalized medical advice in this type of forum. Red light therapy is essentially a drug. So Tina Carew is a Russian researcher who's done a lot of the research on how photobiomodulation actually works in mitochondria. I believe it's her who actually discovered that it's the red spectrum is affecting cytochrome C oxidase. She basically equilibrates red light therapy as a drug. So as I can't prescribe drugs via Instagram, I can't really prescribe exact red light protocols to people. But in generalities, photobiomodulation in cancer, there are treatments that can help. I was talking about the IV obliteration using photodynamic therapy, can be utilized. But if you just have a panel, the kind of sort of black box warning is that these panels should not be shone on anything that has an active malignancy. The red light, the infrared light, it's anti-inflammatory. It brings blood flow to the territory. It is pain relieving. But if you make more blood flow to a cancer, could that potentially make it grow? It's theoretically possible, but most companies are not going to give you the go-ahead to shine these lights on anything that has an active cancer. Now, if you treat off-target, you're not shining it on the area where the cancer is. You're treating, hair, and it's something's in the lungs. Then no, it's not necessarily going to be a contraindication to use one of these devices. I'm definitely not an expert in hair regrowth using these devices, but if the hair follicle is not completely dead, and you can basically regenerate or let's say recharge the mitochondria that are in the hair follicle, the hair cells may come back online. So it is one of those things where you got to kind of discuss this with your treating, oncologist if it's okay to use. But once the cancer's in remission, it's probably full speed ahead with one of these type of devices then if you're interested. All right, so somebody's asking, is morning sun always red and near infrared? What time of day does it change to be more UV? So great question. So from sun up to sundown, there's always red and infrared. And before the sun rises, there's always infrared. 365. So every day of the year, there's always red and infrared. About 42% of the wavelengths of light, when you experience outside, is going to be the red and infrared. Now, UV is going to depend on where your latitude is. The further north you are from the equator, the later in the day that UVA light comes out. A rough estimate of when UVA comes out is when your skin starts to feel warm in the morning time. When UVA hits your skin, it causes the blood vessels to dilate. It brings blood flow to the surface of the skin. That helps dissipate heat, but then you're also accepting more wavelengths of light into your blood vessels, much like putting more light into your blood vessels this way. So UVA usually comes out, an hour maybe after sunrise, sometimes earlier. There's an app called Circadian. To search for it in the Apple Store or the Google Play Store. The Circadian Life app, has that type of information. It has your GPS coordinates, tells you what time of day sun rises, sun sets, when UVA comes out. Later, UVB comes out. UVB is the wavelength of light that will hit your skin, sulfate cholesterol, make vitamin D from that process. So UVB also varies based off the latitude that you're at. UVA is going to be around 365, but there's many places, when you're north enough, you're not going to have UVB for maybe a couple months in the wintertime. So these apps can kind of give you an idea of when UV comes out. The other app that tells you when at least the vitamin D window is open, it's called D-Minder Pro. All right, guys, well, I hope you enjoyed Intro to Photobiomodulation. This video will be put up on my Red Light Doc website. I'll probably be starting to do more red light talks, at least once a month, mixing in there with the mitochondria and the heart health talks. It is all interconnected. My day job is, as a preventive cardiology doc, is to help people not have heart attacks and strokes. A lot of that's about endothelial health, then you're lining your blood vessels, releasing enough nitric oxide. If you have healthy blood vessels, then you have blood flow to the brain to have optimal cognition. You can have optimal athletic performance because you can put enough blood flow into your muscles. You can have optimal heart health because the heart can pump effectively because it has enough oxygen and nutrients for its function. And then optimal sexual performance. You need optimal blood flow to the sexual organs for them to work well. So blood flow is extremely important. And then mitochondrial function. So charging up your batteries. That's what we talked about tonight. So going forward once a month, probably do at least one red light talk. If you guys have a topic that you want to be discussed, just drop it in the comments or send me a DM and I'll try to add it to the calendar. But I'll see you guys next Monday, 6 p.m. Central Time. So have a great week for now and talk to you later.